The Dunning Africa Center. It's not a place, it's a continent-wide conversation.
We shift our focus to the central theme of this month's webinar. Our distinguished panelists and hosts are drawn from across the world and work in business, academia, and government. Join us as we ask the pressing questions facing African business today.
Welcome to another Dunning Africa Center webinar. And today it's my pleasure to talk about music, one of my favorite things. And everyone knows it. Music is what makes the world go round. And of course, today, being a business school, we're going to talk about the business of music. I know nothing about this. I know nothing of the business side of it. So I am doing this in part to learn all about what happens behind my favorite artists and all the money I spend on concerts and music and how this whole industry functions. So I think some of you are joining for that very reason, to understand a little bit more about how this thing works. And I've got together a bunch of really, really interesting people. It's true that our team is largely out of Southern Africa, but the thing about the music industry, it's a global industry, and we're going to find out more about that as we go along. We do have one person who is deliberately from outside the country, but it doesn't really make any difference. The concept of music is universal. So let me introduce people in no particular order, perhaps alphabetical. Simon, handsome, that we will find out momentarily. South African musician, manager, mediator, and co-founder of Freshlyground. Many of you have heard Freshlyground. Plays the flute, saxophone, and so on. He does so many things. It's hard to decide, and I've been struggling to decide where to do. I want to point out he is an MBA student at Henley Business School in South Africa. We're delighted to have him on board. We have Stephen Budd joining us from the UK, and lovely glasses, Steve. Veteran manager, does also many things. He's worked with producers of all sorts, something to do with Lana Del Rey, David Bowie, Gang of Four, Heaven 70, Magic Numbers, etc. I mean, he seems to have been everywhere, and there are Grammy Award-winning producers who have his mobile number and can't wait to see him again. He combines hands-on artist development with deep industry connections across management, live events, and global markets. And you can see behind him all his gold and silver and platinum records. And an interesting monitor, which I cannot see the brand of.
It's a JBL studio monitor, but yeah, absolutely. I keep it close to my left ear, just to make sure I can hear things clearly.
Excellent. We have Gillian Ezra here, looking also incredibly sharp. She's sort of covered so much ground. It's, again, hard to say what to emphasize. Masters in Digital Intellectual Property. And this is one of the, intellectual property being one of the, works on the music business, concert production, artist management, public relations. She's been the head of content at Ayoba. She's was head of African operations for Deezer, launched Africa's first streaming service, Simfi Africa. And she's passionate about everything digital, from what I understand. And she is here to be the dissident. That is to say, we're expecting her to disagree with pretty much everything everyone says today, which will make it more fun. Third, last but by no means least, Asanda Lusaseni, otherwise popularly known as Msaki, South African composer, singer, and songwriter. Again, where do I start? Fine art, graphic design, film, photography. She does it all. She's won a South African Music Award. She was involved in Black Coffee's Grammy-winning album as a writer, composer, and artist. She combines installation and performance with her music, which I'm kind of curious to know more about. Perhaps later she will educate me on this. So everybody here, welcome, heartwarmingly welcome to this webinar today. So let's start off with the basics. I think what I want to know is tell me about the industry, big picture. Let's start with Simon. Give us a sense of the music industry in South Africa. Um, where, what, whom, um, what's the distribution? Yeah, tell us something about it. So people want to know.
I can speak from my perspective of having been a performer in the industry for over 20 years. Started Freshlyground in 2002, and by 2004 we'd launched the album which made us a household name in South Africa. And I've been performing since then. When I started, the industry was very different from how it is today. Just, when we started, we were selling CDs ourselves before we struck a deal. And today we live in a world where 100,000 songs are being uploaded every day onto the internet. And in South Africa, technology has allowed a huge amount of musicians from all spheres to be able to participate in making music. Over the last kind of decade, it's really taken off. So it's a really exciting time to be a musician from one perspective. It's never been easier to make music. It's never been cheaper to make music. It's never been easier to distribute music. So it's there are more and more people today listening to music globally than ever before in history. So music is now more accessible as something that people listen to, and it's easier to make and distribute. That means that, when like post-COVID now things are really starting to pick up again. When I go out in Cape Town and I go to traditional places like Observatory, which has always been like the melting pot for that's where Freshlyground started was Observatory back at the Armchair Theatre for emerging bands. It's humming. There's a lot of live music going on. There's a lot of emerging talent. It feels like there's a vibrancy. Globally, we've exported a lot of music of late, especially in the I'm a piano and DJ world. It's really taken off globally. So from one perspective, it's a really exciting time to be a musician, and particularly to be a South African musician.
Okay. So I want to know a little bit about the ecosystem of the music industry, at least a South African perspective. Shaki, there are multiple layers to this industry, and of course, give us a sense of how this whole thing works.
Sure. I mean, if you think of a musician as a small to medium enterprise, you can think about a musician that is on I guess, an independent musician that's able to book a few shows in their hometown, perhaps even travel to some neighboring countries. As a, a person that has quite a healthy ecosystem around them. If you're regularly getting booked for music, you need an outfit. You probably have a photographer. You will have a road manager. You might have some kind of internal team, maybe a PA, maybe you've got a booking agent, but there's the creative collaborations that you make are also building into the rest of the creative industries around what musicians need to be able to function. So from having somebody think about what you're wearing, some people are able to hire stylists, some people are also obviously, working with bands. I'm a musician that doesn't have a set band, but I've been working with the same musicians for the last 10 years. So essentially we are kind of quote unquote a band, and they are part of my financial ecosystem as well. When I get work, they get work. There's also the thing about being, my reference is being an independent artist who also has a space that is there to support independent artists, just because in the last 10 years, not taking the route where you sign a big deal and you get a big advance. I mean, it's not something that is always good for artists, but for some deals really do help front like sort of give you capital to be able to do the things that you need to do. As a person who's chosen the independent route intentionally, I see that it has a lot of you need a lot of support. So the space that I've started is kind of like it's called Out Black Continua, and it's there to support artists so that you are not, just because you're independent, you don't have to be alone. That's the slogan. And that's just from the last 10 years, seeing that like sometimes you will get a few bookings in Cape Town and they're all small venues. They can't give you anything up front. The venues don't give artists set fees. So now you must fly yourself to Cape Town, book your thing, book yourself a place to stay, take the risk at the door, trust that your audience will come. And these are the little gaps where independent artists need some support. So, where we come in, we'll say, okay, we'll front your tickets. We'll make sure that if you're booking your own sound, I get cheaper rates from Aki because, I do a lot of work with him. So let's get your sound down, your pricing down. Let's see if we can help you with equipment that already exists in Cape Town, just to make that journey of moving as an independent artist a bit easier. This is where I see the struggle of the growth level in South Africa is because an artist that is able to do that kind of work, if they were in another country, they probably would have an agent, they'd have a manager, they'd probably have somebody managing their songwriting career. They probably would be touring in a year or two globally as a niche artist. And this is the frustration that I'm seeing on the continent is that, especially artists that are not in the super commercial spaces. Like I'm a little bit lucky because I do a lot of work in the dance music space, which helps me fund these ideas and my own career as a singer-songwriter and as a cultural worker, because that is not always the way the money is. But we've got a lot of talented musicians in this country that really move for art's sake, and their venues aren't consistent as well. So we have to be able to produce our own shows, which takes capital. So it's that's what it looks like. It's also not just dependent on the artist solo ecosystem. It depends on what the live music scene is doing. And like Simon was saying, maybe there's a bit of a buzz that's growing in Cape Town, but there used to be the Purple Turtle. There used to be all these venues that would actually pay artists and not a lot of money, but there was at least places to go. And now, just on the creative front, what I'm finding is that it's difficult to point to a scene. Like in Johannesburg 10 years ago, you used to be able to say, if you go to Melville, you'll find an open mic session. There's a word and sound. There's a place to cut your teeth, and there's a place to perceive yourself and your own growth. Whereas now it's really hard to find those incubator spaces, which is difficult now for the artist to be a mid-level artist as well, because that's where you get discovered and you get booked at the African Freedom Station for a little bit of money. And then there, the festivals start to pick you up, and this is how you grow. And this is how you can afford to enlarge your team. And then you get festivals that will give you a rate, and then you're able to, have a
Okay.
proper financial ecosystem around you.
So, okay, so that I'm understanding. So give me a sense of how much does everyone depend on the live music scene? To what extent do you make a living split between recording, live music? What's the ratio here? I mean, give me a sense of how this works.
I mean, I think that most people make a lot of their money from live music.
Right.
I would say 50% of my income comes from royalties, sync deals, if not more.
Uh,
And I don't know if that's normal, but that's kind of how I've seen my setup. It's that I also make a lot of music for picture, so it's writing to brief is also something that helps.
yeah,
But I know the average musician, they will give up a lot of rights and royalties, you know, linked to their music, future royalties. They'll even give up publishing because the problem is that people need immediate funds, and they'll give it up for advances. And
yeah,
then what that means that it takes them out of the back end conversation, which is the long-term earner. So because
yeah, yeah.
I didn't give anything away, my royalties are keeping me afloat. If I can take a break for 3 years if I want, because those initial decisions have me in a stronger position in terms of percentages. But a lot of artists, it's the other way around. People are, they're signed to something and it's 80% goes to the label, they get 20%, and even then they're being paid in drips and drabs, and they
And
have
then
to
you have managers and talent agents and so
like
forth
all of
as
that
well.
stuff. But I
Um,
think a lot of artists rely on live music as a way to make a
okay.
regular income. And if you've got a certain amount of gigs, you can make your rent, you can
Yeah.
pay your band, you can do this. So it's really a lot for a lot of musicians, as talented as they are, world-class talent in this country.
Yeah.
We're
Okay.
not we're not missing anything in terms of talent. Are living hand to mouth, thinking about what gigs I can get for the next couple of months to keep me afloat.
Simon, you want to add something to that? You have a similar impression?
Absolutely. I think, we probably earn the majority of our money through live and always have done. Even with a catalog like Freshlyground's, which is generating royalties, even with Waka Waka, which is generating publishing income, we still, yeah, the majority of our income is through live, and it's a priority for us is to focus on live to pay the bills. You know, we're a big band, and I think that's probably the same. I think there are very few people who are in a position to do well out of royalties. Particularly, I mean, I think the publishing is an area where people do well, but if you're looking at like income from your master side, from the streaming, from the sales of music, that's a difficult area to make money in now.
Okay. So, there's a point I had about 5,000 CDs in my living room, and my partner made me get rid of them, digitized everything. But every time I'd go to a different country, I would, go to the nearest CD shop, come back with half a suitcase full of CDs. And, and of course, that's a wonderful thing of globalization now is that, I don't really have to, go hunting. I would have to go to Argentina to buy that particular CD because you can't get it anywhere else. And now you just, go on your computer and there it is on Tidal or Qobuz or somewhere else. But
Yeah.
so it's working well for us as a consumer, is my point. Me as a consumer, I'm really happy with the world. But
It's
for what,
perfect for a consumer at the moment, you know.
but it's
Um,
not that great for you guys. This was my point.
no, I mean, I was looking at stats around streaming numbers and what that translates to, and there's a handful of artists, and I gave you the stat of the number of songs being uploaded every day.
Mm,
There's a handful of artists that are making good money out of streaming, because they're getting really good streaming numbers. But in the UK to meet minimum wage every month, you need to
mm,
stream 500,000. That's 500,000 listens every month. So to contextualize that, Freshlyground have been hovering around 120,000 a month, right? So that's minimum wage in South Africa, 100,000 roughly.
mm.
And that is for one person, right? There's seven of us in the band, you know? Just gives you some sort of insight into
Yeah. That's
the
interesting.
numbers generated, right?
Yeah.
It's challenge.
And that's why physical media is still so
Yes.
important.
Steve.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean,
Yeah, Steve, I think we need you here. This is a good place for you to tell us the two things. One is I want you to follow up on that, but I also want to ask you because you're on the other side, you're producing, you're sorting people's music out for them, and you've done this for a long time. Looking at the number of albums behind you, those round things are called vinyl LPs, by the way, for the young people in the audience. But yeah, tell us a. So I've got three questions for you. One,
okay.
follow up on Simon. Two, what's your perspective because you're coming in from the other side of the story. And three, how does it compare to other countries? Because, as Simon mentioned, the UK minimum wage, is there a big difference?
Sure. I manage record producers and songwriters, and obviously spending a lot of time making recordings for record labels and artist management companies. But I'm also an artist manager myself, and run music festivals and things like that. So, a bit of outside perspective. I was chipping in there on what Simon said because there is still a culture of physical product being sold. Vinyl, you've probably heard of the vinyl revival story, which is very real. I mean, look, it's never going to go back to the glory days of the 1980s as far as vinyl records are concerned, but many millions of records are being sold around the world. And just to give you some kind of perspective, one vinyl album sold is worth to the artist perhaps as much as 200,000 streams, you know. So it's really substantially meaningful if you can find a market for selling physical product, and there are mechanisms to do that. Wonderful websites like Bandcamp, which is a fantastic music discovery place, which allows artists to sell physical product through that space, and that generates a lot of small cottage industries, both smaller labels who are thriving. When I say thriving, that's relative. Let's put it this way: they're making enough money to keep going. Let's put it that way, and perhaps earn a living out of it. But even the major labels take still some store in physical product and have focused on that. If you look at what Taylor Swift has been selling, it's many millions of copies, physical copies.
Yeah.
But streaming, of course, is the overbearing revenue generator for recorded music. Back in the day, old school style, when these records behind me were being made, once upon a time, the live side was focused around promoting the record. So you would go out and tour in order to try and promote and sell as many physical copies as you can, right? Nowadays, it's 180 degrees reversed. And, the live side is the central income. And if you can get that right, and you can get yourself into a position where you have a meaningful audience, not just in your own town, not just in your own country, but if you can do it internationally, then you've got a living that you can make. But it can be an incredibly hard slog to get up to that mountain top where at least you're starting to make meaningful money out of it. And that is the game that all of us are in, which is initially staying on the pitch long enough and learning the ropes, which are very complex, in order to be able to get ourselves and the musicians that we represent to a point of financial stability.
So the story of musicians, of up and coming musicians' misery is true globally.
Yes, and it's leveled out since the internet took over from physical distribution, and since streaming came into play. Realistically, a lot of leveling out has happened, and you notice that if you look at international sales charts, international income charts. Once upon a time, these were entirely dominated by American, British, some European artists. Pretty much around the globe, the highest strata of income was always down to those kind of artists. This is changing now. I mean, the biggest streamed artist in the world is Puerto Rican. The biggest artists on YouTube in the world are Indian. For obvious reasons, if you think about it. But there's been a leveling out of that. The effect that Simon says as well about the 100,000 tracks, and that's only going upwards, that are being uploaded to Spotify and other streaming services every single day, means that the playing field is leveler in terms of we're all facing the same issues about how to get attention on your product, and that's a great leveler, because people in Kailisha, for instance, have as much creative ability as people in the back streets of Peckham in London, and sometimes the financial disparity between those two is not that great. It's lesser than you might think, and therefore it's all down to the creativity and that people can bring to their art about how to promote that in different clever ways. And that's where all of the new services like TikTok and Instagram, not so new, but TikTok particularly has had such a massive effect on introducing music to new audiences globally. So an artist from South Africa is as likely to get in front of a wider international audience as an artist from New York.
Okay. All right. So this is interesting. Now, of course, I mean, okay, so briefly, give me a sense of how a junior artist would split their earnings between live and royalties, let's say.
Well, I mean, it depends. Some artists are more focused on, they're not, it depends whether they're a musician. If you're a musician, in other words, you play a piano, you play a sax, you want to be in a band, your entire being yearns for getting out on the road and
Yeah.
playing a live performance to people. If you're a bedroom musician and you're writing stuff on a computer at home, perhaps you're terrified about that idea of going out and creating a live performance,
Yeah. No,
So
I get that.
there's different leanings for different people.
Let me come back to, I'm going to come to Gillian, who has been very quiet, and I have a feeling this is not in her nature to be quiet for so long. I just met her, but anyway, we'll come. Just give me a second. I want to ask Misaki, how would you split your earnings between live and royalties, roughly?
Yeah, I don't know how to answer this because I've been studying my audience, and there's this interesting thing where we've also got the social media life, and I've got some followers there, and I just think 10% of those people are my real core audience, and I think about how they behave, and I meet them some way. So I run retreats for people, creative retreats where I do sunrise concerts, a dance, a rave. That evening we have a fireside concert. So I've
Yeah.
just found different ways to connect with my audience that's an extension of me because I think there's a common denominator to why they're drawn to some of the things I sing about, and I've kind of looked at what those values are, and I offer things that, you
No, I
know,
understand that. I'm looking
yeah.
for a percentage. Just give me
I
on
don't,
an
I
annual.
don't, I don't, I earn my money in a different, it's like selling merch, it's doing events, it's, royalties, and it's, and the
I
live
don't want a
music.
number. I just want a percentage. How do you divide it between the three, or four, or five?
Um, I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure. Like it's an interesting graph to look at, but if I
Okay.
had to just say between like I said, 50% of my income comes from royalties and
Okay. Well,
and
sense.
then
Yeah. No, just
yeah.
just to get a sense, just to give the audience a sense, and me, of course. Simon, what would you say is your split?
70-30 in favor of live, I'd say.
Okay.
Probably up to when times are good, up to 90% in favor of live. We're in a
Okay.
rebuilding phase. We've just launched with a new singer, and
Yeah.
I've got two bands going. So, COVID was a hard hit, but yeah,
Okay.
we're working back to that 90-10, which is
Okay.
really
All
good.
right. So, Gillian,
The
aha.
more the more live the more live you do, the more merchandise you're going to sell, the more t-shirts you're going to sell, the more mugs. So generally speaking, merchandise can tack on and add up extra additional income in
Okay.
top of the live fees
Exactly.
that you get
Okay.
paid.
All
Exactly.
right. I think, Saki, you need to send me a t-shirt. I will wear it on my next show. Simon as well. Free advertising. Jillian, there's elephant in the room. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about streaming, where everyone talks about streaming, and you're more in the business end of the story as well. So I'm leading into this conversation. Maybe you want to start on the business end of the story and then go to the issue of streaming?
Sure. So I want to say I started out in the live industry, in fact, so it's very interesting. In fact, I was working with one of Simon's bandmates when Freshlyground was launching, so it's very interesting listening to all of you. But streaming, I think, has surprised us. There was a theory called the long tail when music streaming first came out that was supposed to be covering actually more than just music. And the theory was that revenue would come looking like a hockey stick. There'd be concentrated revenue on this side for the bigger sellers, but that it would be a democratization process where finally people could buy the things that they couldn't find, the full catalog for your favorite artist that you could never find. And the theory was that it was going to spread that monetization all the way down this hockey stick. And to our great disappointment, we discovered that what we now call streaming is the superstar economy. The superstars, make no mistake, are making a lot of money out of streaming. But unfortunately, if you're not a superstar, we did not get that long tail effect. And I think it genuinely surprised a lot of people, not just in the music industry. So it hasn't been the we thought the rarities and the The availability of these rarities was going to bring monetization, but it seems the market was too small, so it didn't. So streaming has been a different monetization model. And streaming, I mean, we're going towards 20 years of iTunes and about 10 years-ish of streaming. And we have so much to learn around the monetization. Unfortunately, we can't put the genie back in the bottle. It was launched the way it was. It seems to have settled on a price. All the streaming services, right down to the video streaming services, are really struggling to do any kind of a price increase. What we need is scale. What we need is more people to be paying for music. I mean, that just goes across the board. So, in theory, streaming is an incredibly democratic part of the music industry. You get paid every time someone listens. The reporting is completely transparent. In theory, it's an excellent theory. But in reality, those reports are very difficult to read. I mean, they give you so much information that actually it's an overload. And it hasn't, brought this democratization. So do we know in 10 years' time if that, the establishment of this business model is going to bring better monetization to musicians? I don't think anyone knows the answer to the question, but certainly at the moment, while we love streaming and streaming is an incredible access to music, it's not bringing that revenue that musicians had hoped for.
Okay,
If that answers
so
the
obviously
question.
the question I'm going to come back to later on, what can be done about it, but let's save that for now. Um, so I mean, the extent to which music is a passion, and people will make music regardless of the financial equation, and of course, people like me want to consume this music, but of course, of course, we come into the issue of piracy here, which I think is worth mentioning. It is still around. It's been an issue for years. When cassettes came out, of course, people started making copies of everything, and then CDs, people started making copies of everything. Is this a problem? I mean, I don't know. Is this a problem with streaming, or do people bother with? Is there such a thing as piracy in this day and age? It's Steve. What?
Piracy is minimal now. I mean, there are such things as pirated vinyl recordings still floating around, and for those people who want CDs of concerts that they couldn't go to or whatever, or if you're a mega fan of Led Zeppelin and want to collect, or the Grateful Dead and want to collect every CD of every recording, that is still possible to buy and find, and that's those are pirated. But no, I mean, streaming has largely eliminated piracy as such.
So I know that there are some Russian websites where you can buy FLAC files of the latest recordings, for instance. I have once visited such a site, I admit, in
You
public.
bad boy.
And but Gillian, so what have you? Is this a rising issue from your point of view?
Well, Russia actually didn't have a Copyright Act until very recently. That's why they were getting away with what you're talking about. It wasn't actually illegal. And I'm very sad to tell you that not all the countries in Africa have Copyright Acts. It's a lot better than it was 5 years ago. We still have countries that don't have proper Copyright Acts. So that doesn't help the situation. I'm afraid in Africa, piracy is still quite physical. We still have this phenomenon that in Nigeria, people, pay $5 and they hand over a flash drive and someone fills it up with the latest music. And we still have pirate music being sold on the side of the street. And I agree with Stephen, it's less than it was, but in a way, the advent of digital, the fact that the data prices are coming down and the infrastructural availability is improving every day, not to mention the devices, is not yet through the bad piracy phase. We're not quite where the rest of the world is yet. Digital, I'm afraid, at the moment is also playing a role to enable piracy while it's also trying to attract people to the convenience of streaming and, music discovery on TikTok and all those kinds of things. So we're not quite there yet.
Yeah. Yeah, someone in the audience, I think it's Martin, brought up the point that collecting agencies, absence of methods to collect, no effective collecting agencies in Mozambique, Malawi, Zambia, and probably Nigeria as well, Namibia. Um, yeah, so I mean, if these are the problems that South African musicians face, I can imagine that the challenges are even greater, as you say, where they can't enforce, they can't collect, they can't. And then the entire living depends upon live performances and live venues. And even there, I mean, it's a matter of finding places to organize them and so forth. So I can see this I mean, it's still being a musician seems to be, a hazardous position, hazardous choice of profession. And so I'm
Increasingly so.
this is a this is has it perhaps it's always been so, and I'm turning to our only person who has visible gray hair, Steve.
Yeah.
I probably have more than you, but I've shaved it off. So, um, is it necessarily worse than it used to be, or is this simply every generation thinks they've got the sharp end of the stick?
Um, it, I think it's more challenging than it ever has been. I mean, the dawn of digital changed everything really, and when Napster arrived, which was the first pirated streaming service, and nobody was earning anything from it. All of a sudden, the recorded music industry, the record companies' income almost halved overnight. So that changed the landscape, and it then therefore changed the amount of investment that the record labels would be able to put into artists. Therefore, the burden of finding the money to make recordings and get the artist's business in shape fell far more on the shoulders of artist managers and artists directly themselves. Whereas once they would have gone to a record label and got an advance and used that to set themselves up, that whole landscape changed quite dramatically. So I would say that actually it is significantly harder now for artists to make a living. That doesn't mean if you're entrepreneurial and business minded, and that is an equal level of capacity that you have to your artistic side, then you may find yourselves in a position where you can make more money than ever before. I have to say though that the idea of the medium level artist seems to be gone for good. It's either baseline or it is right at the top of the tree. The whole strata of middle income musicians, middle income artists, that has kind of been disappearing.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, let me turn back to to Steve. Let me see. Msaki. We've been quiet for a bit here. So, and I think this is a good point to bring you. So, and I'm going to play devil's advocate here. So, making music and making money, these are two, kind of uncomfortable bedfellows. Trying to get squeeze money out of a rock, as it were. Um, Now, is it true? I mean, that the managers make all the money and the producers make all the money? Is this one reason why you don't have a manager?
No, I just haven't been able to find one. I mean, in South Africa, um, so many, like the few artist managers that are capable probably have too many artists. And if, I've been in the industry not that long, but long enough to be able to find, good team. I'm struggling to find a manager. How much more for the up and coming artists? There isn't really a training ground, a way for, I also think like we can't be a historical. South Africa was kind of lost to join, this space. And I think it's political. I think it's historical. I think apartheid has got something to do with it as well. But we can't compare ourselves to Los Angeles where there's an industry for songwriting, and this is why we have to go to these places sometimes to even understand, the the ecosystem of these things. And I'm just interested in this idea of money because I think maybe this is what I was trying to communicate before when I was missing your question about percentages, is that there's definitely an openness to look at how you can create value. And people want to engage us with value, but they don't have the opportunities because of what's happening with streaming. Like, if people really like an artist, they're not happy with only spending 50 Rand or 80 Rand, whatever they're charging to be able to listen to you. And they know that they are contributing a fraction of a cent to your income when they really, really like you. So I think there's an opportunity here to connect with an audience in a way where you create more value for them to actually interface with you, whether it's stuff, whether it's experiences. I'm finding that, if you're willing to work with who is really caring about the stuff that you're doing, you can really lock into this. Like my super fans are keeping me alive, and they're doing it in advance, and they don't question the things that I curate because we've developed a rapport. And I think because people are desperate to show you that I will part with my money because I care about your product, and there's so few chances to do it. If you make a limited edition t-shirt where you really collaborate with them, they are willing to pay 800 Rand for it. If you say, I'm doing a secret concert in Cape Town and the first 100 people get to go and it's a 5-course meal and it costs 1,500 Rand because I'm collaborating with my favorite chef, that's an experience, and people are willing to part with their money because we are also, there's the rise of the mega festival where they only get to see you for an hour and you've got a 15-minute changeover. So even seeing you can become an experience because, you know, the way that live music is also being curated, it sometimes has a bit of care, and other times it doesn't have care. So I'm feeling quite optimistic because I'm always thinking about how to meet my people somewhere maintainable and real, and somewhere that makes sense financially for me. But I'm also understanding that, the industry models that we have right now are not helpful for how we can improve our earning potential as artists. So it's got nothing to do with the fact that I don't want to manage and I want all the money for myself. I would love to find a visionary, a co-forecaster, somebody who has more experience in the music business than me. This is a necessity thing. Like, I've figured out how to build my own little team. I would love to find somebody to think about my next 20 years with. But yeah, we're trying to survive. So that's what's happening right now.
So obviously, I'm going to do a plug now for Henley, because obviously, with more musicians need to take business courses at Henley. Barry, I'm sure, will agree, as will, of course, Simon. But Gillian, tell us. I mean, what is clear is that there is something to the secret sauce that is needed, not necessarily because of talent, because there's no shortage of talent. That's clear to me. It's clear to everyone. Masses of talent out there. You bump into brilliant, brilliant people. I do at least. But so how does one overcome this? What advice would you offer labels, managers? How does one, in this day and age, how does one navigate this?
Well, interestingly enough, there's a startup, an AI startup, everyone's favorite controversial term, that
Coming
got
to
quite a lot of
that.
funding recently, and they claim to be an AI manager. So it's managers.ai. I'll put the link up in the chat. But I think it's interesting,
I've
to
been
ask our
working with them.
artists on the call if that's something they would ever consider. And I just want to caveat that by saying this is designed for an international market. It's not focused on live music. It's focused on helping you get your releases out, get a distribution deal, get a promotion thing. And I just think it's super interesting because I've been an artist manager. I was lucky enough to find a big deal for my artist, and we moved to the US and we did a lot, and it's a very personal thing. So I think it is just super interesting, this concept of having an AI manager. And I want to ask, I've got another answer for you, Prof, just in terms of, but I just want to ask the artists on the call, what do you think of an idea like that? Would you try it?
Yeah, let's have Simon.
Well, I think you've stumbled on what I think is the biggest elephant in the room, which is AI, and I think I've got a lot to say about that. But to answer your question, absolutely, I would consider an AI assistance with something as um, like a rollout of a release schedule is a tick boxing exercise. It's really about getting the right assets ready at the right times, so that they are all distributed according to a always evolving theory around the consumption of music. And the consumption of music these days is so closely related with other assets that you need to generate as a musician, visual assets, social media assets, things like that, that if you've got something that can roll that out for you, prompt you, absolutely, I think it would be hugely beneficial. Beyond that, you know, as you said, it's a hugely personal thing. I've been kind of by default manager of Freshlyground since the beginning. We tried a few managers. Um, it's a tricky space for people to inhabit when you're dealing with sometimes difficult personalities, multiple personalities. It's often a
Yeah.
thankless position to be in, Gillian. I'm sure you've experienced that as well, you know?
Yeah, can I just interject there? I've been working with managers .ai actually,
Really?
so I express a personal interest there. It's a management assistant tool really, and it works very very well for artists who are self-releasing. As you say, giving prompts. Now do this. Now do this. Let's generate a social media post for you that you can then amend in a very simple way, but it does it across platforms and it saves you an awful lot of time. And it helps you schedule and put things really into perspective because so many artists are running blind. What do I do now? I've made the music, but how am I going to release it, etc. So from that level, it's really solid, useful, and I think it's a great entrant to the market. And I would certainly recommend it to start-up artists who are trying to get their initial stuff out there. Um, However, you know, proper management experience and working with an artist involves so much more than an AI will be able to deliver for the foreseeable future. You know, there's so many different strata of activity and understanding that you have to deal with, and having that human personality working alongside the artist, if you get it right and if you get a proper management artist relationship that's really solid, then that will deliver an enormous amount of value for the percentage that you're actually paying the manager. There's been a fantastic study done by Cambridge University in the UK very recently. It was published less than 2 months ago about the value that artist managers bring not only to the general artist population but to the UK economy, and it's quite staggering the return that the management percentage that you pay in terms of what the actual benefit that you gain from having a decent manager. Of course, there's bad managers and there's people who don't know what they're doing, but now there are significant knowledge bases available to artist managers via such organizations as the Music Managers Forum, which is an incredible organization which I helped set up from 1992 onwards, but now it has 1,500 managers in the UK and several thousand in 22 chapters around the world, who share an enormous knowledge base that can be brought to bear for an artist's career. So am I flying the flag for managers enough here? Okay.
I
Listen,
mean, I
I
think
would.
so, but
I'm sorry.
I just want to retaliate that the lawyers have their part to play in helping people. And the number of people who phone me all the time saying, "Hey, Gillian, I've got this contract. Will you look at it for me?" And I'm like, "Can you just go and pay a lawyer? Because I promise you, they'll negotiate a better agreement for you." And everyone's like, "Oh, no, I don't have money for that." So I'm delighted to hear that people at least are willing to support the managers. The point that I wanted to make about this AI is that digital is an incredibly demanding thing. You're going to put out a release, then you have to do all these posts. They all have to be coordinated and synchronized. And I think to get something that does that is incredible. But I wanted to go back to Barry's original question. I don't want to ignore the other revenues that are in digital. And again, I'd love for the artists with us to comment on this. When I work with artists, and going back, Music in Africa Foundation did some research in 22 about where are artists earning money in Africa. You might think it's out of date, but I think it's still correct. And we looked, and I was played a very small part in that. And when I look at it, one of the biggest revenue streams that people were talking about was other digital, TikTok, Instagram, endorsements, direct shopping, things like that. There's certainly a part to play if you've built an audience. There are other revenues in digital, and sadly, I thought one of the leading revenues there was actually endorsements, was actually working as an influencer. So I just thought that was very interesting. And I'm wondering, how our artists are finding those revenue streams. Are they there for you? Are they helpful? Are they more trouble than they are worth?
Let's start with Saki, first you and then Simon.
Sure, definitely they're part of the earning package. Yeah, even the micro influencer space or having partnerships and all of that stuff, it's really an interesting way to up the general revenue. But I think if you ask like a lot of artists that are dealing with agencies that are asking us to be part of these campaigns, I mean, I'm probably in the periphery of that, where I'm very picky at, like, I need things to align. I need to be able to not feel like I'm overselling anything. It needs to really connect, because also I think my audience will read me for filth, because it's quite an authentic relationship that we've built. So yeah, I know it helps a lot of my colleagues. I know some people will even like charge to post if you're booked for a festival and you want some real estate on my timeline and you want me to put the poster there. It's your job as a promoter to get people to the festival. I just need to show up and play. But even in my team, if you want me to post something, I usually charge for that space, because that is my advertising that's my conversation with my people, and that real estate is
Yeah.
expensive. And worth something. So yeah, those things really help.
Yeah.
Definitely. I was gonna say that this tool that you're talking about is something I would definitely consider to even just up the skill and help the team that I've already trained. But it does not replace a forecaster, a co-visionary, a person who knows more. You know,
100%.
I think that
Steve.
expertise and the instincts and being able to make decisions at the right time, the strategy, I will pay for that. Like, I will halve my salary with a person who does that for me, because it's such it could also, if with the right manager, I could set up generational wealth that could take care of my family for eons. So I think that's not something AI can do for me, even though the practical day-to-day stuff, I think, I would definitely look into that. So I'm going to check out this managers.ai for sure. But we're already trying to do these everyday things. It's just the big decisions. I don't know. I don't know if I
I
can.
brought in Barry, by the way, Barry van Ziel, because he's played many roles, and musician. Now he's managing stuff, and he also teaches at Henley. So I want to give him, because he also has the advantage of many years of experience and can comment on this whole conversation that's going on from an artist's point of view, perhaps.
Hi there, Rajneesh. Thanks for inviting me in. I was actually very happy sitting in the audience and absorbing the conversation. And the next minute, I got unceremoniously zoomed in. So thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Nice to see everybody. Stephen, Simon.
How's it, Barry?
Hi, Barry.
Stephen, is that the room with all the Afrobeat albums behind you?
All the Afrobeat albums are on the wall over here.
Okay.
Okay.
But these are all cheesy pop records that I've made in the last 40 years or so, some of which you will know the melodies and lyrics of, no doubt.
I'm sure. I'd love it if there is a couple of minutes to perhaps share, Stephen, about your involvement with West African music in particular, and the festivals you've been behind. And I know you haven't really talked about that, but I'm sure the audience would love to hear about the fact that you're in the UK, but you have such a keen sensibility for sub-Saharan music, sub-Saharan African music.
Yeah, I mean, do you want me to talk about that now?
Let me comment on Rajneesh's instruction, and then you can.
We'll come back to that in the next section, because I want to move on.
Yeah.
But yes, go on first, Barry.
So I've been really interested in what everybody's been saying, and there's been a lot of really meaningful commentary, and it's quite strange because I feel disconnected from the music industry now. but I also feel connected. I've got this kind of weird conflict or tension, I guess. But in my days as a performing musician, specifically with Johnny Clegg's band, I kind of rode the whole value chain of everything you're talking about, because I started in 99 and ended in 2018. So we literally metaphored that whole model that Stephen just described of touring to sell product, and then using awareness created by recorded music in order to tour and to fill venues. So the whole thing switched around. And then the monetization, interestingly, was largely obviously performance fees, but then the cream, I'd say, would be the merch. And so I noticed that the merchandising operation got a lot more serious. And then also physical product. We actually sold CDs really well right up until the end. So my take on all of this is, and I'm thinking from the business school point of view now, there's massive opportunities, but the whole thing has to be rethought, and the whole operation of performing, recording, and touring music has to be changed. Building on, I guess, the likes of what Msaki was talking about earlier with the experiential offerings.
So Barry, this is perfect. You've just taken me in the direction I want to go, which is
Cool.
to say, and I want to stay online because this is to say, what are the new form? Where are we going to go now with the music industry? Yes, you've turned things upside down, as you say. So, I mean, I used to buy CDs and then like albums and then think, okay, when this person turns up live, I'm going to go watch them. And now, as you say, it's the other way around. You first go listen to them live and you think, oh, I want to download their music, or I want to. And that's an interesting switch that has taken place, which in some ways is a good thing because, how do you end up buying CDs? And it was word of mouth, or, that you heard or you listened to radio or whatever it was. But so now we've got a new world. And then, some people talk about festivals as being important. Someone mentioned to me about DJs playing a big role. Anyway, but new formats. And so what's new? And then you're mentioning, Barry, you're mentioning that, you're talking about West African musicians. There's so many musicians out there. What is going to happen in the next 5 years? What are the ways forward, the good ways forward and the bad ways forward? And I want to get to have a sense of that. I'm going to start. So I know that Simon mentioned DJs to me in our pre-webinar conversation. For instance, so how does that work? Why is this something? Do you think it's going to make a big difference?
I think DJs are part of what's going to make a big difference, but to answer the bigger question, I think that we are now on the cusp of radical change in the music industry and the way that, or the music that people are exposed to and consume. So, I mean, it's really happening right now. The last 6 months, things have radically changed, and it's all to do with AI. And we live in a world now where Spotify has about Gillian can confirm this, but about 100 million songs on offer on its catalog. There's a platform called Suno, which is generating that every 2 weeks. So there are people now, everybody who has access to Suno can make a song. You prompt it with lyrics, you prompt it with a style and a feel. 100 million songs are being generated every 2 weeks. And that's all AI. The Billboard 100 recently had an AI hit. It's stuff we've been listening to on Spotify without really knowing. So it's as a musician who's creating and writing music and the time and effort required to record music. I mean, anyone who's been in a studio and has been through the process of from the beginnings of writing an idea, the workshopping it with other musicians, especially in a band, the slog of trying to reach consensus, to eventually convincing someone to pay you money to record the music, to eventually getting into a studio, and then battling through the red light syndrome and having to perform on demand and then having to mix it and master it, you can now press a button and have something which is incredibly compelling released within 30 seconds. And I don't know what that means in terms of as a musician who's making music and distributing music, and the music that I'm consuming and listening to, it's going to become a profoundly dystopian space, I suspect.
Okay, so well,
So that's what's going to happen in the next 5 years.
okay.
My
No,
question.
but I'm thinking opportunities as well. I mean, you're focusing on the doomsday scenario of AI
It's
taking
not
over the
doomsday. I
planet.
just think it's unnerving.
Okay. Now I know that Gillian has certain opinions on this matter, and I'm saving her as my secret weapon. But I want to hear everyone on this particular point before I come and give her the
Well,
floor. And
you
but
you you
yeah, you wanna
raised
go on?
something, yes,
Go
that
on.
I
Say
wanted
your
to
two cents and
raise.
then come back later on. I'll give you the mic for longer. But
Like,
I think answer Simon, and then we'll come
the
back.
good news is, Simon, that Suno have now licensed Warner and Universal.
Saw that.
Now, this does not cover every song in the universe, but what it tells us is a couple of things. First of all, the music industry has woken up to the fact that they shouldn't let the genie get so far out of the bottle that we can never get it back. That's what happened with Napster. It's a lot of the reason we ended up where we are. And I'm so encouraged by the fact that the music industry has stepped forward and said, let's not fight about this. Let's license it and make money. And it shows respect for copyright, it shows respect for musicians. And sadly, it's going to take them a long time to come to someone like you for a license. But if they have the appetite to do it, they will get there. So I think it's such a positive development. I know it doesn't take the sting out of what you've said in terms of generative AI music, but at least in terms of the issues that we're having around, improper use of likeness, going on and saying, write a song that sounds like Nick Cave, at least the AI industry is waking up to that, and a lot faster with the music industry than what happened, with all the music piracy around streaming. So I think that's hugely encouraging.
So I know that you have more to say. I can't imagine that you won't. But let me now turn to Misaki, because you also have some thoughts on this. I mean, first of all, opportunities. Where do you see things moving? Where are the opportunities or where are the challenges?
I'd
Both.
love to hear Stephen's thoughts first, but I do have thoughts.
Yes. Okay. So you want to let Stephen in first. Okay, Steve,
Sure.
shoot.
Look, I have no issue with artists using AI in music production. I have no issue with songwriters using AI in their craft. Where I sticks in my gullet and makes me angry is tracks that are 100% AI produced, vocal, everything that has just been done by a prompt by some guy sitting in his basement who then decides to upload it to Spotify along with the other 150,000 AI tracks that have been uploaded in the last couple of days, which is diluting the attention parameters and also the money pool for artists. I think that what will happen is that there's going to be an unintended effect that the public perhaps will become. I say this with a hand on my optimistic heart, hoping that this will be the case. The public will perhaps become much more aware of when the quality of a genuine artist who emotes from their soul. And that's something that I don't think can be replaced. AI is going to get better and better and better at replicating that. But there is, we resonate with music on a greater level, I think, than AI can replicate. Now, there are statistics about the public, 90% of the public can't tell the difference between an AI generated track and a real track. I certainly can, but let's see how this unfolds. I think it's very unfortunate that, particularly where the enormous power base in the music industry and the copyright industry lies is in the US. And it seems that the tech industry, who are completely driving the whole AI phenomena, have managed to override so many um, have managed to override in terms of like weight, uh, lobbying power, and all the rest of it with a US government who's compliant in working with them against the value of copyright. They're diminishing the value of copyright. And I think that this is a very, very bad thing for that it's going to have a lot of unintended consequences. It's like give AI what it wants, worry about the copyright later. That's the kind of
Yeah.
attitude. And it makes me scream, it makes me extremely angry. But it is what it is, right? So we're faced with having to deal with the reality of this.
Okay, I feel we're okay. I see that we're having a shift in the conversation to AI, and I think it's the elephant in the room. I understand that. So and I'm not one to fight it, because Gillian, I think again is will be devil's advocate on this point. Do you want me to let Barry jump in as well, and then Gillian, you can knock everyone down?
I
May I
think
offer?
we're short of a comment. Yes, go
Yeah,
ahead.
may I please? Okay, so I mean, I think I want to talk to this just some optimistic, small, I mean, ways of thinking. As a person who's an artist who is thinking about community as a way to move, whether it's my audience or whether it's the artists that are in my community, my peers, essentially, that I respect. We've been trying to move as a collective, and it's been an interesting way to engage festivals where we say, hey, we're a Pan-African collective of artists, and we all sing in different languages. We've got different indigenous instruments that inform our sound. We've got different rhythms. Some of them are similar, they overlap. These guys are from Sudan, Nairobi. We're from South Africa, Lesotho, Eastern Cape. And we've been starting to engage festivals where we say we want to come to a festival. We'll do a residency 10 days before, interact with artists from that area, whether we're in Zanzibar or Brazil or Nairobi. And the thing that's becoming sacred is space to make and create together. And now what we're starting to see this collective and thoughts like this and ways that artists move in this way, we don't always have to wait for a festival to book us. If let's say one of us gets booked by Joy of Jazz, our relationships with artists is making us travel to each other and get considered by festivals. Because if Leo Mile from Lesotho is booked by Joy of Jazz and she's part of the Out Black Africa Collective, she can say, I've got half of my set is with Charles Odungu and he's from Uganda. Can we please bring him? Do you have budget for it? And then this is where we start supporting as a collective. So I'm also like collectives, artists having agencies moving in a way that makes sense for their career is it can also be a community ground up thing. It doesn't have to be So I just wanted to share that because this is something that I'm finding exciting,
Okay,
that's organic and
this is
is
interesting.
a little bit less industry focused, but more, yeah, just
Okay,
more activity and centralizing the fact that we need to create and move together.
okay.
Then with the AI thing, definitely not too bothered by it. It's like when analog photography becomes more special because everybody's got a digital phone. It's that kind of thinking, and I think the same optimism you have, Steve, and I have that like people that are looking to connect on a soul level will look for the authentic things. I mean, in my process, I even joke with AI and I say I'm writing a song about heartbreak. I feed it the same information I have, and I see who does better. And like who can write a better song. And sometimes they'll come up with great lines, and so it's the fear of it is not there for the way that technology is moving. Where the fear is for me is just illegally with the copyright and everything, making sure that we're not being stolen from and our likeness is not being ripped off, and there isn't a way for us to get compensated. So if that's an improvement there, like you're saying, Gillian, that's encouraging for me. But yeah, that's basically like for me, the optimism I think is in going smaller. As you know, I also think the jig is up as people realize that Spotify is robbing us and everybody's robbing us, and you really need to think about how to offer value. And the human experience is becoming more important. If there are more fake AI artists that exist that cannot become human and don't give people a tangible experience, how much more special is it that you've got a relationship that can be physical and intimate and curated with your people? It's making those things more sacred, and we should center them.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, I think Martin Myers, I think in the audience mentions the government intervention issue. And okay, so last 2 weeks ago was the London Jazz Festival, and I have bought a certain number of tickets, and I'm going to these things. And you go to these things, and you count the people in the room, and you look at the amount of production, the efforts have gone into doing these things, and I think, how are they making any money? Purcell Room at the Royal Festival Hall. It's a small venue, 200 seats, I think, and you've got these six musicians, and they've spent a huge amount of time, doing stuff and adding effects, and I look at it, I say, how are they making any money? And of course, then I meet people like Steve here, who says, well, he's running a festival in India, and I'm thinking this festival thing is taking off, but who pays for it? Is this coming from the state? So is society paying for this? Because collectives are all very well, but they're making having festivals, people come play music, you discover new artists and so forth. How does this gel with the whole thing? I'm not sure. I mean, I come coming from the outside, and so Steve, you're the one who's running a festival in India, from what I remember reading.
Yes.
Um, do you want to say something about this?
Sure. I mean, people like large scale music events, and if you can keep your costs in tow, if you can get sponsorship involved, we wouldn't have been able to do it without sponsorship. We had Bacardi as a sponsor for setting up the festival in India, and they became a very close partner. It came with all sorts of restrictions. Obviously, the costs in India were lesser, and I was bringing over international artists to India, and I'm telling them, we can't afford to sell the same ticket price as you would expect in a European festival. So please drop your fees, but we'll give you an amazing experience. And I would pull on their heartstrings in order to get them to commit to coming over. But that was 15 years ago. It's all changed now, and the market in India is skyrocketing. There's very significant large scale events. Coldplay have been over there. Ed Sheeran's been over there. Every major artist is now lining up to play in India because they can pull crowds of 100,000 in the large cricket grounds in India, and they're paying a reasonable. There's a growing middle class, who can afford to spend money on entertainment, but sponsorship is a large part of it. And of course, there's been a bit of a bubble in India as a result of all of that, with people paying inflated prices for artists. So that's going to settle down after a while. But I mean, festivals is certainly within the UK. We have an oversupply of festivals. There are, 200, 300 festivals in the summer across the UK. Quite a few have been struggling because of, people just not being able to afford the kind of prices because that they are charging quite significant entry costs. But that is where a lot of the musicians themselves make their money at festivals, because the festivals are the ones where, they're being paid, hopefully being paid reasonable fees. Funnily enough, you think that when you hear an artist playing Glastonbury, or they're on the main stage or one of the second stages at Glastonbury, and you're thinking, wow, they've really made it. Glastonbury is the cheapest payer. They use their leverage, right, and their PR leverage to undercut normal festival prices, festival payments for artists by 50%. So when you see, whoever it is, U2 or Paul McCartney on stage at Glastonbury, they're being paid half of what they're actually worth to a normal festival audience, So, but festivals are an extremely important part of the infrastructure. Long may they continue. I'm working on setting up a jazz festival in the UK for 2027 now, and it'll have a slightly different flavour and a different approach to things. But I mean, yeah, that's something I want to do, and I'm very interested in that space.
Interesting. Now, so the future is going to be different from where we are today, is what I'm understanding. The big fears, and we're going to come to this AI thing, because I think AI is the fear, and also the hope. And Gillian is a digital optimist, is from what I think is a good way to describe her. The floor is yours, Gillian. Tell us about your hopes and fears for the future.
I think, I think I already pretty much said it. Like, my hope is that the music industry will get together with the technology industry and make sure that copyright is protected, and that my favorite thing to tell people at the moment, which everyone loves to hear, is that copyright is the privilege of a human. So an AI cannot have a copyright. They cannot get royalties.
Yeah.
So it's very unsettled law at the moment about the human who directed the AI, who did the prompts, the example that Stephen was just giving, who did those prompts? Do they get a copyright? Or is it, or where does the AI play a role in that? So that is very unsettled law. But at the moment, that is
They can get royalties, but they
It's-
can't get a copyright.
you can't get royalties without a copyright. They go together. Royalties are generated from a copyright.
Well,
So
legally that's true, but if you're posting an AI track to Spotify, right, that AI track is generating royalties, and if you get enough
the
of them,
royalties arise from a contract. Please don't push me into being a boring lawyer that nobody wants to hear.
no. But
Royalties are not generated by copyright law.
Yeah,
They're
no,
generated by the contract.
I know I'm not disagreeing with that, but I'm saying that if you're an AI artist like Velvet Sundown, who's had 5 million streams, those royalties are being paid to the person who created that.
Yes. But that's because of the contract, Stephen. It's not settled law in the world as yet. There's many, many lawsuits going on around the world against all the different aspects of AI. So the point is, where I'm a digital optimist, is just in the sense that we're already seeing early signs of a cooperation between the music industry and the technology industry. And if we can get that right now, we can protect the musicians, we can protect the music. Obviously, there's nothing I can do about people making AI-generated music. It's going to happen. It's a novelty. Personally, I completely agree. It will never be the same quality. It will never have the heart and soul. At the moment, we have AI bands that are touring. If I'm not mistaken, there's an ABBA show in London that's holograms and AI that's been an absolute sensation.
Fabulous.
Is it going to replace going to see Ed Sheeran? I doubt it. It's its own thing. So what I just think that we've learned some lessons from the mistakes we made in the past as the music industry, and we let the genie get too far out of the bottle. And I'm hoping that these early signs are going to bring us together with the tech industry to look for new revenue sources. This new licensing deal that we're talking about will mean that if someone goes into this AI engine and says, create a song that sounds like Nick Cave will get those royalties. His likeness is being used, various other elements, all very technical law. I'm glad I'm not the lawyer that has to figure it out, but it creates a new revenue stream and it respects the artist. It's not the whole solution, but it's an encouraging sign of cooperation. That's my thought.
I don't disagree with that.
I disagree with that.
Okay, go on, Simon.
Please disagree. Come on.
No, I think that you're optimistic that there's identifiable heart and soul in music for not only the majority, but for musicians as well. I've done tests, we've put in demos, and I've played music, and I've done stuff with band members who have been grooving and really like into AI generated schlock, which is only going to improve. And my hope is that back to what Msaki was saying, that there's going to be like is happening in the visual world. If you're on social media and you're just watching this increasing number of AI generated schlock filling your timeline, the same is going to happen with music unless they actually manage to just separate the two and distinguish between what's AI generated and what isn't, which would be great because then you can listen. This is AI. This is a human being. And you can select, right? I don't actually want to listen to any AI. That's one way to.
It should be labeled. Should be labeled.
Should be labeled. Absolutely should be labeled. And I suspect they might get there, and I hope they do. But if they don't, there's going to be increasing move towards the real, to sitting in small or large audiences, consuming music in front of.
Can I just make a quick point, Simon, on that? I'm very hot on campaigning that AI music should be labeled as AI. In fact, they should have an AI SRC code, frankly. But One of the things is that we feel that's happening with Spotify is it's not in Spotify's interest to have AI music labeled. In fact, a lot of AI music is being perhaps generated by people who are associated with Spotify, and it is going onto playlists and flooding playlists, so that those kind of like happy piano or sad piano playlists or morning light playlists or yoga playlists, which are huge, now are already containing 75% AI tracks, right?
Exactly.
So that is doing musicians out of a whole lot of income, right? So, that's why I've got a particular bugbear about that. So I believe that actually the public would be served by understanding that a track is AI labeled.
I think that this is not. I don't think anyone disputes that idea. It's a good idea. Um, I think we're coming we're to the tail end of the thing. I want to move towards saying positive things, so that we leave the room feeling good about life in general, rather than.
I love creating music using AI at the moment. So there's that.
No, that wasn't quite what I was looking for.
I know.
But so what are we gonna do? I mean, okay, I'm not turning to the answer, trying to Barry, Msaki, Simon, I know Sawood Barry. Where do you see the industry? Are there new business models out there that we need to consider, given the new realities? Or you're looking back at your career and your life and what you know, are there new business models? Are there new ways of looking at this? Yeah, I want to ask. Want to go through everyone on this, and that's, I think, a good way to close this up. Go on, Barry.
Yeah, I definitely think that there's a wide ocean of opportunity in front of us, and it's quite interesting to sit outside of the music business and look at it. And I really do. I'm glass half full in this case. I don't think AI will replace music. I think it'll become an essential workflow piece of music. But I agree with all the reservations you've shared about labeling and regulation. Absolutely. I think rights and data will become the sort of battleground commercially. But I also think strong, because a good song is a good song, and that's never changed through the ages. And so I think strong human catalogs and brands even will get more valuable, benchmarked against all the AI slop. And I think there'll be a divide. So I'm an optimist. I'm a digital optimist as well. And I think I loved. I know hypnosis didn't really land, but I loved hearing Merck Mercuriadis when he was creating this new mindset of songs as financial assets. That for me was hugely exciting. And the one thing he used to always say in his interviews was, the best years of the music industry are ahead of it. And I took that out as quite a nice war cry, battle cry for the future of humans playing music. So humans augmented by AI, and the best years are ahead of us. How's that for a nice positive way to end?
Okay, Saki, do you want to follow up and tell us how you see the future, hopefully positively, but not holding a gun to your head on this.
No, I mean, I don't have much more to say. I think you guys have seen where I'm coming from. I love what Barry just shared as well. I'll just let it unfold. And I think for me, just not losing the personal touch and trusting the fact that there's a synapse where there's so much that puts us together, and that information is valuable. What I'm finding, I think maybe this is the new thing I'll say, is that like what I'm finding with my audience is that the way that you communicate with them shows you how you value them, even with the way that the digital interfaces. Like if I care about you, I'm going to send you an email saying, this is what I'm planning, and this show is available to you because I'm rewarding your loyalty with my private information first. And then I will scaffold it and say, okay, after I send the email, or after I've sent the WhatsApps, I'll send the email. After I've sent the email, I'll maybe do a post on my close friends on Instagram. And then it'll go to the public in a way that if I'm reaching people they're possibly discovering me. But I think there's ways that you can show your audience that you value them, and they will pay you back in kind.
So
So
using social media effectively,
interested in
uh,
that
uh,
relationship, I think.
yeah,
How to
and
show
building a
value to
relationship.
each
That's really
other.
interesting. Okay. No, I think I see that point, and I think people tend to use social media as a blunt tool rather than something to be used in a more kind of a nuanced way. I think that is a good point. Gillian.
Could I just sort of just say something? I do apologize for interjecting, but I've got an absolute hard stop in 3 minutes, so I'm going to have
Okay.
to drop off the
Okay.
call maybe before we've ended the session completely. So I apologize, Gillian, if it's okay if I dive in. Just from my point of view, I don't want to sound pessimistic. You know, obviously, if I'm comparing to the music business the way it was 30 years ago, when there was a very organized structure and there was, you know, clear markers for how you could move forward with a career that could make money, you know, if you could get through the gatekeepers and all the rest of it. Yes, the landscape has completely changed. But, you know, music is always going to be there. I mean, music is to the soul what water is to the body. You know, we have a requirement for music in our lives. It's always going to be here. The ability, you know, the ability for anybody to play on the field has been flattened, which is positive because it's a flatter playing field, I think. And I think that, you know, entrepreneurship and the way that entrepreneurship links with music is going to be the key for people to make money out of music. It's not just about the quality of the musician that you are, which should be the only reason that people buy your music, right? But it is in the real world, it is the link between entrepreneurship and the quality of music. The more that those two sides come together, you know, in the mind of the artist and understanding how to interact with the entrepreneurship side, the more ability they are going to have to be able to generate revenue.
Okay, so musicians need to be business people as well, in short. So that's a good point. Thank you. Uh, Gillian.
Well, I mean, I didn't bring my crystal ball with, but one thing I'll say, my hope, you know, if on this call we've all agreed that we've been bad at monetizing recorded music, I think we've been worse at monetizing performance. Why is everyone talking about live performance? Because we're not monetizing a recorded performance. Going right back to MTV, where we paid for and made music videos and gave them to MTV at no cost, and they made a fortune, and we made nothing. The worst business model in history. We are still really bad at monetizing recorded performances. Maybe we sold a few DVDs somewhere. And in COVID, the great hope was that we were going to get people to pay to log on and watch live performance, and it didn't happen. Maybe somewhere in the magic of AI, we can get that one right. That's just a gap that I would see because we have been spectacularly bad at monetizing recorded performance. And maybe the magic of AI, like the ABBA thing, is going to find a way that captures the heart of the public and creates something that they are willing to pay for, because that would uplift every musician under the sun. I see Stephen has got the answer.
Think
No, I don't. I'm just waving goodbye. Okay.
Stephen, all
Goodbye.
right,
Thank
Steve.
you. Bye
Simon,
bye.
have you got the answer? You're also waving.
I was waving goodbye to Stephen actually, but
Okay, so that's
Everyone has an answer. Now, I think, you know,
that's my
we're
secret. That's my secret hope. Someone, some clever person somewhere who knows how to work
okay.
with AI.
You know,
There's
we're
a money
actually
maker for sure.
we have to respect our audience's need to have dinner, especially those in South Africa. So I'm going to draw the curtain and bring it to a close here because but I want to. It was really interesting to. I mean, for me, I hopefully for our audience and for our participants as a conversation. I think the basic point is, you know, really there has to be a kind of a it's a business. It's a business and not just about passion. It's about passion, but passion doesn't generate any money unless one is able to be entrepreneurial about it and effective and use the tools we have. We've had a number of questions or comments on the chat function about on the classical music and so forth. which is a different kettle of fish than popular music, and that I think as well. But we haven't. I'm sorry to the audience for not having had the chance to bring that up. I think that Barry, we're going to have to do this again because now break this into sub themes, because I have a feeling we could have continued for a while, and we can get more technical on the business side of stories. But I'd like to say thank you to the audience for sure, and definitely for my wonderful cast of artists, managers, and gifted people in general. So thank you very much and for coming. And remember the Dunning Africa Center webinar series, first Thursday of every month. Always happy to see you here. Thank you so much.
The Dunning Africa Center. It's not a place, it's a continent-wide conversation. Join us as we ask the pressing questions facing African business today.